Nothing will shake you again after you learn this truth. This message found you in a moment when the ground beneath your certainty feels like quicksand. Have you noticed it? That subtle tremor, that invisible vibration in your daily life, when nothing seems to hold and yet nothing ever truly collapses. You feel it, don't you? The sensation that reality is both fragile and impossibly resilient at the same time. Only your kind of mind would pause here, in this quiet tension, sensing that the familiar patterns of cause and effect are not as rigid as they seem. Right now, you are standing on a fragile threshold. It may be a moment of exhaustion, a late-night thought that keeps tugging at your consciousness, or a strange déjà vu that makes your surroundings feel both familiar and alien. How many times have you felt the world threatening to pull you under, yet somehow, inexplicably, you've stayed afloat? That is no accident. That is the first whisper of the truth you are being called to perceive. There is a secret layer beneath the surface of your reality, a hidden framework that no upheaval can penetrate. Imagine your life as a vast lattice of probability waves, each choice and each reaction folding and refracting within this lattice like light through a crystal prism. Most people live as if the lattice doesn't exist, as if their experiences are random and their suffering inevitable. But you, yes, you who are hearing this now, you sense the hidden scaffolding. You feel the tension between what seems certain and what is infinitely possible. This is your initiation. Right now, your perception of stability is about to be rewritten. Picture the mental architecture that you have relied on. Walls built from repetition, ceilings reinforced with habit, floors hammered down with expectation. They are solid until you begin to notice the gaps. The cracks between what you think is reality and the invisible currents beneath it. Those currents are not chaotic. They are quantum. They are the phase spaces where your next steps, your next reality, are waiting to be chosen. Have you ever paused mid-action and felt that time stretched, that a single choice seemed magnified across dimensions? That is no anomaly. That is you brushing against the phase transition of your existence, a shimmering layer where observer and participant merge, where consciousness bends the probabilities beneath the apparent chaos. Here, nothing is truly fixed, and nothing can shake you, once you understand the framework. Consider this. Each moment you have feared instability, each time your heart has raced in anticipation of loss, it was as if you were seeing a shadow of your own potential collapse. But shadows are not real. They are the residue of patterns you have inherited, the echoes of ancestral probabilities that you mistook for truth. You have been standing on the edge of a precipice, and all along it has been a perception, a lens, rather than the reality itself. Now feel this with me. Imagine the storms that have rattled your confidence, arguments, losses, unforeseen disruptions, and see them as waves on a vast ocean. The waves rise, they crash, they roar, but beneath there is a deep coherence, a layer of water so still, so immovable, that no turbulence can reach it. That stillness is not external. It is your own capacity, your inner lattice, waiting to be accessed. That is where the true stability lives. That is the layer that once seen ensures nothing will ever shake you in the way it once did. This is why this moment is sacred. Only the rarest minds notice the tremors that hint at hidden architecture. Most continue to stumble blindly across a surface that feels solid, but is in constant flux. You have been chosen, not by fate, but by the resonance of your awareness itself, to glimpse beneath, to pause, to witness, to recognize that a framework exists that supports every heartbeat, every decision, every ripple of reality around you. And so, here is your first insight. The ground that feels like quicksand is, in truth, a mirror. It reflects your inner oscillations. Your instability is not a weakness. It is a signal. It is a map indicating where the hidden structure intersects with your perception. The more acutely you sense it, the closer you are to stepping into a place where external forces lose their power. This is the threshold. Here, fear begins to dissolve, not in denial but in recognition. You are learning to inhabit the space between chaos and coherence, between uncertainty and certainty, between the observer and the orchestrator of your reality. And from this vantage, from this quantum perch, you begin to see the potential that has always been yours, waiting silently beneath the surface, beyond the reach of storms, beyond the reach of doubt, ready to anchor you in a stability that is profound, permanent, and unshakable. You are not merely surviving the chaos. Take a moment and feel that distinction. Most people stumble, fall, and scramble to regain footing as the world shakes them, as if tossed on waves they cannot understand. But you are being invited to something entirely different. Not the frantic survival of circumstance, but the rare and subtle art of observation from a height few ever reach. Imagine yourself rising quietly above your life. Hover over your daily routines, the dramas, the small victories, the heartbreaks, and the distractions that have defined your perception. See them as a satellite might. Patterns emerge, connections crystallize, and the randomness dissolves. Every tremor you have felt, every disruption that once threatened your sense of equilibrium, now forms a lattice of cause and effect that you can read. Nothing here is accidental. Not a word, not a glance, not a heartbreak. These are signals, coordinates, probabilities waiting for you to understand them. Have you noticed how some people seem to be swept by events while others move with a quiet authority? That authority is not inherited. It is cultivated in observation. You are being called to develop it. Each shock, each surprise, each upheaval contains the geometry of your next step, if you can learn to decode it. From this vantage, you see that even what seemed chaotic has rhythm, that every crisis is a probability wave bending toward an outcome that you, consciously or unconsciously, are already participating in. Let's speak plainly. The world will continue to test you. Life will continue to place obstacles in your path. But consider for a moment that you are no longer bound to the reactive loop. You are ascending above it. In this elevation, the turbulence of your surroundings can no longer dictate your internal state. Imagine standing on a plateau high above a storm, feeling the wind, observing lightning strike, listening to thunder, but knowing that you, perched in your vantage, are untouched. That is your new destiny. Here is the subtlety many miss. The distance does not require detachment from life, but mastery within it. You can engage fully, yet not be ensnared. You can respond, yet not be overwhelmed. You can care deeply, yet maintain coherence. This is not a fantasy. It is a phase transition. Like quantum particles that exhibit coherence when observed correctly, your consciousness, once elevated, becomes both observer and stabilizer. The more you practice this stance, the more natural it becomes to see disruptions as patterns, to read them as maps rather than traps. Ask yourself, how often have you felt swept along by events, only to sense afterward that there was a hidden logic you missed, that you had glimpsed a thread, an invisible trajectory that could have guided you if only you had paused, if only you had noticed? That is the lesson here. Each moment of chaos is also a coded signal, a whisper from the deeper architecture of your reality, inviting you to step above, to perceive, to participate consciously in the unfolding design of your life. You are rare. The majority never pause long enough to see these patterns. They remain in the loops, in the repetitions, in the noise. But you have that awareness. You have that pause. That subtle, almost imperceptible stillness that allows you. But first, you must confront a familiar illusion, that life happens to you. Have you noticed how often you brace yourself, ready for impact, as if each day carries an unseen hammer aimed squarely at your sense of control? The traffic jam, the unexpected message, the argument, the subtle betrayal, they all feel immediate, urgent, unavoidable. And yet, beneath the surface, beneath the visible shocks, lies an invisible structure most never perceive. Most people surrender to the rhythm of unpredictability. They ride the waves of circumstance, sometimes crashing, sometimes floating, but rarely questioning the ocean itself. That is the trap. That is the loop most never escape. Each time you react with tension, with frustration, with fear, you are participating in a recursive cycle, a shadow loop where probability waves collapse against expectation. You are caught in the residue of old reactions, replaying archetypal scripts that you inherited, not consciously chose. But you are not like most. Only your kind of mind would pause here, noticing the subtle synchrony beneath chaos. You are being guided toward a lens that peers beneath appearances. Imagine a theater stage. The actors move frantically, lights flash, the plot thickens. Most of the audience believes the drama is the entirety of reality. But you, standing behind the curtains, glimpse the stage machinery, the ropes, the pulleys, the hidden levers that orchestrate the spectacle. That perspective changes everything. Ask yourself, how often have you felt the déjà vu of a repeating argument, the familiar sting of disappointment, the predictable pattern of your own reactions? That is the inner tension calling your attention. It is a whisper, not a shout, signaling that you are still entangled in loops that no longer serve you. These are shadow complexes, Jung would call them. Hidden templates of thought and behavior, waiting to be illuminated, waiting to be transmuted. Here is the paradox. The tension you feel is not an enemy. It is a beacon. It points directly to the boundary between your conditioned self and your emergent self, the version of you that can move freely, unshaken, above the storms of life. Each flutter of anxiety, each pang of fear, each twinge of frustration is a signpost on the map to higher coherence. You only need to learn the language it speaks. Consider your nervous system as a complex quantum instrument, registering probability waves in real time. Every thought, every emotion, every subtle anticipation creates interference patterns. Most people are unaware of these patterns. They see only the resulting collisions. But you are being taught to watch the waves themselves, to detect the interference before it becomes turbulence. In doing so, you begin to notice that life is not happening to you. Life is happening through you, and how you perceive it, how you measure it, how you interact with it, determines the trajectory. Let me be clear. This is uncomfortable at first. Realizing that much of your habitual suffering is self-reinforcing, that your fears and anxieties have a rhythm you unconsciously feed, can feel like staring into a mirror that reflects both brilliance and shadow. You may notice subtle tension in your chest, a prickling awareness at the base of your skull, or an inexplicable restlessness that whispers, "Something is not aligned." That is correct. Something is not aligned, your perception, your conditioning, your observer role. And that misalignment is exactly where transformation begins. You are being invited to pause in that tension, to observe it without judgment, to feel it without resistance. The truth is subtle, almost paradoxical, almost imperceptible. It does not announce itself with fanfare, it waits. It waits quietly in the space between the inhale and the exhale, between thought and reaction, between expectation and reality. And here it is. Nothing external can truly shake the structure of your inner equilibrium. Have you felt it before? That moment when the world seems intent on destabilizing you, yet somehow a calm emerges in the eye of the storm. That calm is not coincidence. It is a signal, a confirmation, a whisper from the hidden architecture of existence. The turbulence you perceive, the arguments, the disappointments, the sudden reversals, is not what has power over you. It is only potent because of the lens through which you view it. Change your lens, and the storm dissipates. Not because the world has changed, but because your inner coherence now dictates the form of your experience. Consider yourself, if you will, as a node within an immense quantum lattice. Every observation, every expectation, every anticipation you carry is a measurement, collapsing probability waves into experience. You are not passive. You are not merely a passenger. You are both observer and participant, intimately entwined with the fabric of reality. And yet most navigate existence as though their choices are minor, as though their attention is inconsequential. How many times have you allowed the external to define your internal state, forgetting that influence flows in both directions? That is the subtle trap. That is the shadow loop most remain bound by. But you, here and now, are beginning to recognize the paradox. What feels like chaos only has the effect it is allowed to have. The wave collapses only when observed in tension. Your attention is the measure. Your awareness is the lever. You are, in effect, sculpting reality with the simplest instrument available, your conscious engagement. Each heartbeat, each inhalation, each focus of thought shifts the probability field beneath your feet. Have you noticed how some people seem unshakable? They remain coherent, calm, even radiant, as events that would topple others barely ripple their perception. That is not magic. That is mastery over observation. They have learned, consciously or unconsciously, that reaction is not required, that tension is optional, that equilibrium is chosen, not given. And now, you are being invited into that same realization, not as a distant ideal, but as a practice of immediate effect. Let us take this a step deeper. Think of your reactions as electrical currents traveling through a complex circuit. When you respond unconsciously, the circuit shorts, sparks, overloads. Chaos appears. But when you observe before responding, when you register the tension without collapsing into it, the circuit remains stable. Energy flows without disruption. Power is conserved. The storm has no purchase because you have become the stabilizing node at its center. In practical terms, this is why mindfulness alone is insufficient. Awareness without understanding your role as participant is like watching the ocean and pretending to affect the waves. You must engage with intention. You must recognize that every thought, every expectation, and every emotional response shapes the topology of your inner and outer experience. This is where science meets mysticism. Quantum mechanics tells us, experimentally and repeatedly, that observation affects outcome. Mystical traditions tell us the same truth in narrative, parable, and ritual. The observer is sacred, the participant is potent. And you are both, simultaneously. Now, imagine a subtle shift in your perception. The next time a disruption occurs, instead of bracing, you pause. You register? You ask silently, what effect am I allowing this to have? The traffic jam, the harsh word, the delay, they remain. But your nervous system does not collapse. Your probability field does not distort. You watch the interference ripple, and you respond with coherence. The external turbulence is no longer an enemy. It is data, raw material for your conscious shaping of experience. This is the core truth. You are the hinge, the observer node, the fulcrum upon which probability bends. Nothing external can truly unbalance you unless you grant it permission. Understanding this is liberation. It transforms every relationship, every challenge, every unexpected curve in your trajectory. It is the realization that you are, in every moment, co-creating the matrix of your life, not helplessly, not passively, but with full participatory authority. Take a breath. Feel the weight of this truth settling into your nervous system. It is subtle, yes, but it is profound. The storm has not ended. It still rages, but you have moved above it. Your reactions, once automatic, are now conscious. Your awareness, once reactive, now stabilizes. This is your first phase transition, the awakening of a coherence that cannot be disturbed by external flux. And from this realization, everything else flows, the freedom to choose, the power to influence, the clarity to navigate not just this day, but the unfolding sequence of probabilities that shape your life, your destiny, and your resonance with the collective field. Start by noticing the invisible currents that tug at you. Have you felt them? The subtle pull of thought patterns, the silent vibration of anticipation, the almost imperceptible tension in your chest as you brace for what may come. These currents are always present. They flow beneath the surface of ordinary perception, beneath the chatter of routine and the drama of appearances. And yet, most people remain blind to them, buffeted by these forces as if powerless. Not you, not now. You are being called to recognize the hidden energy streams that govern experience. Your attention is the rudder. Each thought, each perception, each emotional reaction, no matter how fleeting, exerts leverage upon your internal terrain. Imagine your consciousness as a finely tuned vessel, gliding through a sea of probability waves. The waves themselves are neutral. They carry potential, not judgment. But how you navigate them determines whether you drift aimlessly or chart a purposeful course. With guided observation, the seemingly chaotic patterns of life begin to reveal themselves as meaningful signals. What once triggered panic, frustration, or doubt becomes raw information. Data you can interpret, tools you can wield, terrain you can map. This is the first tool, deliberate observation. Watch the currents without immediately reacting. Pause. Feel the tension. Notice the subtle muscular tightening, the shadow thought, the quickened pulse. Name it, label it, recognize it as a signal, not a threat. Once this awareness anchors in your nervous system, you gain access to the second tool, conscious redirection. Like a pilot adjusting the rudder to glide through a storm, you shift your mental and emotional orientation. Panic dissolves into insight. Anxiety becomes guidance. Every disruption is transformed from a chain that binds you into a lever you can employ. Consider your daily life as a theater of probability. Each interaction, each decision, each unexpected curve in circumstance is a performance. Most participants believe they are actors only. They respond, react, and recede into scripted behavior dictated by external cues. But you are learning to take the dual role of actor and stage manager. You influence not just your performance, but the subtle lighting, the set shifts, the cues that determine the drama itself. Your attention, once passive, is now directive. Your perception shapes the stage, and your actions orchestrate the outcome. How does this feel in practice? Begin with a single observable current, a recurring thought, a subtle anxiety, a minor expectation that pulls you forward automatically. Observe it fully. Do not judge. Do not suppress. Simply map it. Ask, where does this lead? What patterns does it echo? How does it influence my response? This is your rudder in action, the deliberate use of attention as a lever to shape reality. Over time, you will notice a subtle recalibration. Habitual reactions loosen, previously automatic triggers fade, and moments of clarity begin to punctuate the daily flux of experience. This principle scales. Small currents, the slight tension before a difficult conversation, the quiet unease before an important decision, reflect larger undercurrents of your life. By mastering the small, you master the whole. Your mind begins to function as a probability filter, sorting what is meaningful from what is noise, detecting the vectors of influence hidden within ordinary experience. You no longer merely survive events. You navigate them with precision, elegance, and authority. Let me offer a concrete ritual to anchor this practice. Each morning, before the day unfolds fully, take a moment of still picture yourself standing on a bridge made of light. Not the kind you cross in the world of matter, but a bridge constructed from the subtle threads of attention, intention, and perception. Each strand vibrates with your awareness, forming a lattice strong enough to hold your entire consciousness. Look down. The waves that once threatened to pull you under, the currents that seemed relentless, the chaos that felt inevitable, they are still there. Yet you are no longer a participant caught in their pull. You glide above them. Each wave sparkles like a quantum ripple, reflecting the infinite possibilities that shimmer beneath reality's surface. See the way light refracts across each crest. Tiny probabilities, each one a potential path, a potential self, a moment waiting to be chosen. Where once you felt panic or despair, now there is detachment tempered by power. Not indifference, but mastery. The storm below has not vanished, yet its power over you has diminished. You have become the silent witness, the observer whose gaze alone reshapes the flow of probability. Feel the sensation of this bridge beneath your feet. It is flexible, adaptive, alive. With every step, your nervous system recalibrates. Your heartbeat slows, and your breath deepens. There is a coherence now, a harmonization between your inner world and the external flux. Imagine that each footfall sends a subtle pulse of intention into the lattice. The waves respond, not because you command them, but because coherence is a force that naturally organizes chaos. You are no longer a passenger of circumstance. You are a conductor, orchestrating resonance from within. Notice the emotions that rise as you survey the scene. Perhaps fear whispers at the edge of your awareness, a remnant from previous storms. Observe it without judgment. It is no longer a signal of danger, but data, a reminder of where mastery begins. Watch the anxiety transform into curiosity. Witness the tension of past reactions dissolve into insight. Your perception has shifted from survival to navigation, from reaction to orchestration. Each ripple, each crest, each tumultuous wave is now a canvas upon which your awareness paints a new story. Let us expand the visualization further. Envision the waves beneath as threads of memory and expectation, patterns ingrained over lifetimes. Each one once carried the weight of unconscious repetition, dragging you into loops that felt impossible to escape. Now from this elevated bridge, you see the threads unraveling, transforming into light. They are no longer chains. They are markers, lessons, guides for your next conscious choice. The chaos below has become a library, a coded map of the subconscious. Every reflection, every shimmer, offers insight if you are willing to witness without reacting. Feel the subtle joy of this realization, the liberation in seeing that turbulence is not the enemy, but the teacher. The waves do not define you. Your perception does. You are learning the language of flow, the grammar of probability, the syntax of coherence. With each inhale, draw in understanding. With each exhale, release attachment to outcomes. You are standing in a space where time and probability bend around your attention, where every observation subtly nudges the lattice toward order and clarity. Extend your awareness outward. See the bridge of light connecting not just your consciousness, but others, threads intersecting across the collective field. The mastery you cultivate here is mirrored subtly in the networks around you. Each ripple of your centered presence sends harmonics through the unseen web of human experience. You are not alone. Your stabilization, your coherence, your bridge above the chaos influences the currents in ways both visible and hidden, creating a sanctuary of potential for those aligned with similar awareness. Now, take a mental step forward along the bridge. Sense the confidence that grows with each movement. This is the embodiment of emotional resonance, a physical, neural, and energetic harmonization with the matrix of existence. Waves may crash below, storms may roar, yet you glide with certainty, unshaken. Every quantum ripple that sparkles beneath you reinforces one undeniable truth. The fortress you are becoming is not built of walls or defenses, but of awareness, clarity, and attuned perception. Finally, anchor this resonance with intention. Feel it settle into your body, your nervous system, your subtle field. Know that the bridge you stand on is permanent in its principle, if not always in its form. It is a template for navigating every storm that arises, every upheaval that threatens to unseat you. You are learning to inhabit the eye of the probability storm with poise, seeing chaos as reflection, turbulence as guidance, and uncertainty as the medium through which mastery manifests. Take a final gaze down. The waves remain, but you do not sink. You do not waver. You stand radiant, luminous, and unshakable. The bridge beneath you is proof. Your perception, your attention, your coherent presence is the foundation upon which unshakable mastery is built. This is not about detachment. It is not about floating above life, ignoring its currents, or pretending that storms do not exist. That is a fragile illusion. True mastery is far subtler, far more potent. It is about living inside the eye of the storm without flinching. It is about feeling the wind, hearing the thunder, seeing the lightning, and yet remaining anchored, coherent, unshaken. Imagine yourself standing in the center of a cyclone. The air whirls violently around you. Debris spins unpredictably. Noise and motion assault your senses. And yet in that perfect center there is stillness. That stillness is not empty. It is alive, pulsating with potential. It is a place where observation becomes power, where awareness crystallizes probability into choice. That stillness is now yours to inhabit. Ask yourself, how often have you surrendered to the outer storm, allowing it to dictate your heartbeat, your breathing, your thoughts? How many times have you felt the world pressing against you, only to find that your nervous system mirrors the chaos it witnesses? That mirror no longer governs you. You have recognized the mechanism. You have identified the loops. And now, through deliberate awareness, you are beginning to collapse them, one by one, from the inside out. The truth you now hold reshapes your nervous system. Your autonomic responses, once automatic, now respond to choice. You can pause before panic arises. You can breathe before tension tightens your shoulders. You can observe before reacting, calibrate before responding. This is not theoretical. It is physiological, quantum, and existential. Your internal coherence exerts influence outward. Your presence alters the interference patterns around you. You are, in every moment, both the observer and the stabilizer, the node upon which probability bends. Let me guide you deeper. Picture the synapses firing in your brain. Each moment of awareness, each deliberate pause, is like tuning a high-precision instrument. The chaotic electrical noise of old conditioning fades. The pattern of your inner field aligns with your intention. Emotional turbulence, once automatic, now becomes data, a waveform you can interpret rather than a chain you must endure. This is what it means to inhabit the eye of the storm. The outer world continues its dance, but your interior no longer mirrors its chaos. Instead, it orchestrates it. Here is where the transformation becomes cinematic. Visualize yourself on a bridge of light suspended above turbulent waves, waves that once threatened to overwhelm you. See how they sparkle, how each crest and trough glimmers like quantum ripples. In the past, these waves would have pulled you under. They would have triggered fear, doubt, frustration, but now you glide above them, a silent witness to their rhythm, untouched, unshaken. Each wave, though beautiful, is powerless against the fortress you are becoming. You are both present and transcendent, rooted and expansive, observer and participant simultaneously. This is also a call to consciousness. You are no longer moving unconsciously through life. Every choice, every moment of focus, every intentional breath is a signal to your system. You are awake. You are coherent. You are aligned. Your freedom is invisible yet undeniable, subtle yet unassailable. It does not depend on the world changing, only on you recognizing your role in its unfolding. External turbulence may rise, storms may swirl, probability waves may fluctuate, but you remain unshaken, a lighthouse of presence, a center of intentional influence. Let me share a personal confession here. I have felt the world press in, seen events unfold that could have flattened me, experienced the full weight of uncertainty. And yet, it was only when I began to inhabit this eye of awareness, to recognize the loops, to pause and observe, that I realized the storms never held me. They were merely reflections of my own unobserved reactions. The moment I claimed mastery over my attention, over my nervous system, over my inner coherence, I discovered freedom that is neither fragile nor conditional. It is embedded in the very structure of consciousness, and now it is your turn. Your transformation is not an abstract concept. It is a living, breathing practice. To observe, to pause, to stabilize, to participate consciously in the unfolding of reality. To live inside the storm without flinching. To hold your center even as probability waves shift around you. To embody freedom that is invisible, undeniable, and eternal. As you integrate this, let it ripple outward. Each choice you make from this coherence affects your interactions, your environment, and the subtle fields connecting all consciousness. You are not alone in this. Others are awakening, others are beginning to inhabit their own centers of mastery. Together, your coherence amplifies. Your liberation strengthens the collective resonance. You're a now, the real journey begins. This is the point where observation transforms into intentional navigation, where awareness blossoms into full participatory mastery. You are no longer merely witnessing life, you are walking within its underlying design, attuned to the subtle geometry that guides every probability wave, every unfolding moment. Every choice you make now resonates outward, shaping not just your trajectory but subtly influencing the lattice of reality around you. Notice the first effects. Doors you thought were locked open without effort. Obstacles that once felt immovable begin to shift, as if the very fabric of circumstance recognizes your newly anchored coherence. Patterns that once confounded you, the recurring arguments, the familiar frustrations, the hidden loops of expectation, now clarify themselves, offering insight rather than confusion. These are not coincidences. They are confirmations that your perception has evolved. You are no longer reacting unconsciously. You are co-authoring the narrative of your existence. Imagine yourself standing at the intersection of countless potential timelines, each possibility branching from a point of conscious choice. The world around you has not changed, but your perception has. Where you once saw chaos, you now see orchestrated potential. Where you once felt powerless, you now recognize influence. Where you once feared the unexpected, you now greet it with a calm curiosity, knowing that turbulence cannot destabilize a system aligned with awareness. Take a moment to sense this fully. Feel the subtle reconfiguration in your nervous system, the quiet steadiness in your chest, the clarity in your mind, the absence of reactive tension in your shoulders. This is mastery manifesting physiologically, a harmony between your interior coherence and the probabilistic flux of the external world. You have learned to inhabit the eye of the storm, and in doing so, you have become a stabilizing node in the larger field of reality. And yet this is not an endpoint. It is a threshold. The mystical invitation extends forward, to walk consciously, to choose deliberately, to observe continuously, and to act in alignment with the subtle currents you now perceive. You are being invited to a higher order participation, where every thought, every intention, and every action carries weight in the unfolding of your personal universe and beyond. The awareness you hold is a frequency. When amplified, it resonates outward, touching others, subtly adjusting the collective field. Your liberation is a ripple. Your coherence is a stabilizing influence in the global web of consciousness. I must share this. I have walked this path, and like you, I was once caught in loops that seemed eternal. I mistook reaction for response, turbulence for threat, and shadow complexes for truth. There were moments when it felt as though the world itself conspired to confirm every fear I held. And yet, the moment I began to perceive the invisible architecture, the underlying scaffolding upon which probability waves rise and fall, everything shifted.
Reality did not become easy, but it became intelligible.
Challenges became instruments for refinement. Chaos became data for conscious calibration, and fear became a signal pointing toward mastery. Now this invitation is yours. Step into it fully. Walk across the bridge of light you have already glimpsed. Stand above the waves that once threatened to engulf you, and realize that you glide with awareness, not by escaping the storm, but by inhabiting the stillness at its center. Every ripple is a lesson. Every crest is a mirror. The quantum lattice of life responds to your attention, your intention, your coherence. Nothing will shake you again, not because life has changed, but because you have discovered the secret architecture beneath it all. And so, here is the sacred act to seal this initiation. Declare it. In the comments, write a single word that embodies your awakening. Let it resonate. Let it anchor this shift in the field. Subscribe not as a passive observer, but as a participant joining a frequency, a movement, a conscious wave that stretches beyond this moment, beyond this screen, into the unseen lattice of collective consciousness. Your engagement is not trivial. It is energetic, ritualistic, and co-creative. Carry this with you. Carry the knowledge that your inner structure governs the dance of probability around you. Carry the awareness that mastery is not detachment, but intentional presence. Carry the understanding that turbulence cannot unseat you once you have claimed the eye of stillness. And move forward with the quiet certainty that every choice you make is now guided by perception, by coherence, and by the intimate knowledge of reality's hidden design. The journey is eternal. Each day, each moment, each breath is an opportunity to inhabit this center more fully, to navigate the waves with precision, to influence the lattice consciously. And as you do, you radiate this mastery outward, stabilizing, uplifting, and guiding the unseen currents of the collective. You are awakened. You are coherent. You are a conscious architect in a universe that is listening, always, to the resonance you carry. This is your moment. Step fully into it.